Focus on this week. This is a program that offers crucial and significant discussions so as to influence positive change in Tanzania, in Africa, and in the world at large. Today, I'm leading the program. I am your host, Caroline Maleo, and of course, we'll be together every Wednesday at the same time and on the same day. Today, we are discussing a topic titled The Tanzania We Want, from Vision 2025 to Vision 2050. And as you know, on the 17th of July this month, President Samia Suluhu Hassan launched the DIRA 2050, the Vision 2050, that projects the future of Tanzania for the next 25 years. And actually this DIRA 2050 comes after the DIRA 2025, which is going to be used until still in the country until next year in July. And this DIRA 2025 was actually launched during the leadership of Mkapa, the late Mkapa, and actually it was launched and it aimed to put the country into the middle income level, and actually it succeeded on that. And this DIRA 2050 is the new topic now, and we're actually going to dive deep into it, the transition from DIRA 2025 into the DIRA 2050. And to dive deep into the topic, here at the studio today, we are joined with three most important voices in Tanzania, and we're joined with Professor Samuel Wangwe, who is an economic analyst. You're mostly welcome. But we're also joined with Dr. Kahioza, who is also an economic analyst. You're mostly welcome.
Thank you for having me.
But we're also joined with Thomas, who is a political analyst. Thomas Kibwana, you're mostly welcome.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
It's so good to have you here today to dive deep into this topic. Before we begin to talk about the topic, people might be wondering, what do we mean when we say a development vision? Why is it important for a country to have a development vision? Take it, Professor Wangwe.
Thank you very much. The development vision, known as DIRA, is a 25-year projection of what kind of economy or society we want to achieve. Because that, like a target or a destination, influences what kind of plans we will make to reach that destination. So it's a destination point which guides all activities which we plan to actually do. Mm-hmm. We had that before as DIRA 2025. Now we have DIRA 2050. Essentially to have a long-term range and defining that destination in order to determine how to get there.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much. Yeah. A roadmap in order to find where we're heading. What about you, Thomas? How can you define a development vision?
I would say DIRA is a roadmap. It shows where we want to go and how we plan to reach there. So for us, we have decided on a 25-year plan, which is split in a 10-year plans, in 5-year plans, and also in 1-year plan. People do not know that even the yearly budget is part and parcel of implementation of the 25-year DIRA. So as soon as we begin in July 2026, the new budget year, that first budget, that 1 year, that's the implementation of the DIRA 2050. And from then on, we'll also have a 5-year plan. We'll also have a 10-year plan, which goes from 2026 to 2036. So it's basically a roadmap of the Tanzania that we want to have by the time we get to 2050. 25 years is a long time, but it's also a short time. So we have to hit the ground running as soon as the DIRA kicks in place next year in July.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much, Thomas, for that explanation. What about you, Dr. Kahioza, if there's something you want to add?
Thank you, but allow me, first of all, to say thank you for having us this evening. But also let me take this opportunity to appreciate that I'm sitting with prominent voices, as we've said. Professor Wangwe is the one who speaks ex cathedra in economic matters in this nation. And I can't take this for granted when we have this kind of a discussion from the economics perspective with him here. I've been also seeing Thomas doing his job quite well when it comes to political analysis and the dissection of matters between politics and economics. Now, to your question, they have well said, it is a roadmap, it is a compass that directs on one side, but also illuminates the society in terms of where it is heading. But we have two phases of it. Number one is what it encompasses when it comes to the internal issues of a particular nation. In this sense, we're talking about Tanzania. And there are four areas which define DIRA. One is what we call prosperity. What do you aim to achieve in terms of people's prosperity, but also the nation's prosperity? We talk much deeper, I think, when it comes to what are the metrics of that prosperity. Number two, it unleashes and establishes the moral order of that particular nation. That's why you see we have a lot of issues pertaining to governance in that document, and how the administrative, for example, and the ways in which people will govern themselves. Number three, it establishes again, or it puts the grounds on the predictable systems. And that's why you say you have the time frame. This is what you want to attain after a certain period of time, and therefore these are the critical pathways on how to get there. So you have to build that. And the last thing is to have a society where there is social order, or social justice, so to speak. And that's why, apart from talking about the economics of it, there's also the social, I think, largely the social side of that question. So the one side is to look at the domestic issues of that. But it's also important to note that the other side of it is the external side of it. When the world started celebrating this gospel of globalizing the economies and liberalizing politics, one thing is common is that natural resources in any particular nation have increasingly become resources of the globe. And in that process, some downside impact have visited many, many countries, and one of which is that resources have been used at times, utilized at times, to the benefits of other people other than those who own those resources. And therefore the process of moving from natural resources to economic resources has been not only a continuous struggle, but a difficult struggle. Now, countries want to have what, in this sense, DIRA in this aspect, so that we know how we, the nation, deal with the rest of the world when it comes to its own resources. So that's what I would like to put forward when it comes to what does DIRA portend, in particular, on both sides of the internal aspect and the external side of it.
Thank you so much, Dr. Kahioza. Thank you all for that amazing and incredible information that you've provided on what DIRA means to any country. Back to you, Professor Wangwe. Now let's talk about the DIRA 2025, the vision that is about to end. We know that there were a lot that were attained, including achieving at least 6% of our gross domestic economy in the country. But can you tell us more about what was achieved on the Vision 2025, and what lessons have we learned that if they will be implemented, maybe we'll be able to achieve all the things that we have outlined on the Vision 2050?
Thank you very much. DIRA 2025 identified the 5 main things to achieve. One, it intended to achieve a high quality of life and to reduce poverty and actually get rid completely of abject poverty. But secondly, it intended to achieve unity and peace in society. But third, it was intended to achieve good governance and rule of law. Four, it intended to achieve a learning society which is well educated and learned. And finally, it intended to achieve a strong economy, competitive economy with the agricultural transformation, going from low-level productivity in agriculture to high-level productivity, and through value addition, and in that sense also industrialization. Now, in many ways, what has been achieved? We have been able to achieve a number of things, but also fallen below a number of things. We could see, in terms of building a strong economy, we achieved middle income, which was aimed at, but it was a middle income of $3,000 per capita. We achieved a middle income country of about $1,100 or $1,200. So in a way, we entered that group of middle income countries but at a lower level. We expected to have to create governance and rule of law. This has been achieved in terms of fluctuations. Sometimes we see different phases achieving governance and rule of law at different levels, which this time around we would like to see more of a consistency in improving governance and rule of law. Poverty has been reduced, but we have seen the rate of reducing poverty reducing. That over time, we have not gone as fast as we should have in terms of reducing poverty. And this is mainly because the sectors which carry many people have not improved productivity high enough to improve incomes and reduce poverty. These are like agriculture and informal economy. These have been lagging behind. We did not achieve as much agricultural transformation as we had expected. This is partly because of the resources allocated to agriculture have not been high enough, except for the last 3 years. We have seen now increasing allocation of resources to agriculture, and that should result into more productivity and higher incomes. So the achievements have been made, but like growth of the economy, we expected from the projections, it was expected that the economy would grow at around 8%, 8 to 10%. But the average has been around 6%. So we have fallen below. Of course, although some people misunderstand and think that we have achieved the middle income economy faster than we had planned, the truth is we have achieved them, but we should have achieved them faster. And by 2025, we should have reached income per capita of $3,000, not $1,200. So we have to draw lessons from the past. And a number of issues which were prioritized in Vision 2025 are also reappearing in Vision 2050. Now, maybe when we come to that point, we shall be able to say more, but we can learn from those areas where we did not achieve what we had promised to achieve, and in those areas where we achieved, then we can do more of that. But the areas where we need to do more, and it's actually Vision 2050 is trying to show how we can do more in order to achieve what it is projecting.
Thank you so much, Professor Wangu, for that. Back to you, Thomas. Can you tell us what is it that is included in the Vision 2050? Can you just take us through all that? Like, what is it that is included in Vision 2050?
Sure. One of the things to include that economically to become upper income nation with a GDP per capita of between $7,000 to $12,000, to experience a digital revolution, education, improvement in education. So those are the things that we want to see. And also, in governance, rule of law, to have a more fair and just society. Like the professor said, some of the things have reappeared. For example, governance and rule of law. So these are the things we want to achieve. Now, having it on paper is one thing. Now, the implementation side is another thing. As Professor pointed out, we did not achieve everything we set out to achieve from the Vision 2025. And even those things we achieved, we actually did not hit the target. The example was given of becoming a middle-income nation, but specifically, we are a lower middle-income nation, not a middle-income nation. We are not yet a middle-income nation per se. So we did not achieve that by 100%. So we have to learn from the lessons of what made us not achieve 100% of what we set out to achieve in 2025 to ensure now that when we go into DIRA 2050, we ensure that we do reach the target of $7,000 per capita. We do reach the trillion dollar economy that we want to see. We do see more inclusive economy, but a more expanded economy that we are not depending on very few sectors of the economy, and to ensure that we do have an educated population who can deliver on the things we want to achieve.
Thank you so much for that explanation. With what you just explained on the economic trajectory that we target, the vision shows that we target that individual persons can be able to earn at least $7,000 per year. A person might be wondering, is this realistic? Actually, what does this mean when we say that we want our country to earn US dollars, at least $1 trillion per year, and we want individual persons to earn this amount? How will this be achieved? Can you just explain this in the economic perspective?
I think it's one of the questions that has erupted a lot of hullabaloo. I've heard people saying, hey, you are saying 7,000, how is that possible? Of course, there are genuine concerns. People have been subjecting that question to the way, for example, the government spends, and they have argued quite well that we need to be more assertive to achieve that. But let me try to elaborate a bit on that. As he has said, we intend to have a $1 trillion economy. Now, with a nation that will be having almost 140 million people, average-wise, that you're talking about $7,000. But this is the thing. When we say we want to have a $1 trillion economy, we're talking about the gross domestic product, the GDP. And Professor said what we had planned before and what we didn't achieve. I think one of the areas that we need to be serious about is the GPDism thing. Because our focus has been that we need to have the bigger economy in terms of GDP. But you see, the problem is, if you have what we are doing, for example, investing a lot in infrastructure and the other things, automatically the accounting way of measuring the economy, you'll eventually have a booming economy, so to speak. But that does not necessarily mean that people will get out of poverty. That's what we have seen the last 25 years. If you get out of this country and borrow $5 billion and pump it into the economy, the next year, your economy will show that it has boomed. And let me put it this way. When good professors were doing Vision 2025, when we started implementing in 2000, I was in standard 6 myself, our GDP was $13 billion US. 13 billion. Today, you have an economy of around 85, depending on the data you're looking at it but it is $85 billion US. Our economy has expanded by $72 billion. Now, in the span of 25 years, so one could argue that, yeah, that's not a bad number. But if you look at the number of people who have moved out of poverty, so to speak, as much as we say that we are in the lower middle income, but 1,200 per capita is not commensurate to other changing economic variables. For example, if you have to look at the costs of living in the country, I think if you look at our data, the cost of living have been increasing 6 times after every 5 years. Per capita income has not done that. In fact, it has grown below 1%. Now, the difference is 5%, meaning that 5% after 5 years, people are getting more poorer. And if you're to look at per capita, for example, it was 360 per capita. Some say 450 in 2000. And today, so one could say it has increased 3 times. But for example, if you look at the way in which the cost of living has increased, it has moved more than 16 times as it was in 2000. And one will say, no, that's not a problem because, of course, it will have to increase anyway as years go by. But the question here is, what are the fundamentals which make people get out of poverty after some time? One is productivity, as Professor said. But look, productivity in this country has been in its knees. And the reason is the questions we have been asking, I think it's my own view, are not proper. Because you don't go to the sectors. The question has been, where are our sectors? The question should be, where are our people? And at least in the last 4 years, we have tried to do that. I think under President Samia, kudos to her government. There is a lot that has happened in the agriculture space, and that has helped these people. Lastly, in a footnote, so what does 7,000 mean to the person? Because one argument has been, people, I've seen numbers being thrown around. One is the value of the shilling will be, going by the trend, will be weaker than it is today. 2, people have argued that, yes, we may intend to get 7,000, as you have asked, but we are not showing any signs of getting there because we planned 3,000 the last 25 years. We have hit 1,200. Now, this is what it means. That is an average. We're saying 5,000, 7,000, it is an average figure. It doesn't mean that everyone will have 7,000, but at least when you do the math, everyone will be able to do that. And that should mean, so, how much people, I mean, it should mean, how are the patterns, what are the patterns of consumption? For example, we talk about food. If we have enough food in the country and people can access food, that's fine. 2 is energy, the energy question. One of the features of our economy is energy deficit. Now, if we'll be able to have sufficient energy in that aspect, then that will be a good thing. And lastly, if we'll be able at least to contain the dependence question, because as much as we have these resources, we are investing natural resources, we're investing a lot in infrastructure and the rest of the world, but still our economy is dependent on the foreign factors, and I don't say it shouldn't be so, but you have to have a level that is meaningful to the people. That means people participating in the economy. So the economy, I mean the market that encompasses everyone, and that has not been achieved. And 2, making sure that capital is decentralized to the people. Capital as a factor of production in this sense, and that has not been happening. So if we can achieve these 2, the participation rate, the market that encompasses all, and decentralization of capital to where people are, I think that would mean a lot in terms of the figures we are talking about.
Thank you so much, Dr. Kayoza, for that explanation. Dear TBC1 viewers, if you are just tuning in TBC1 right now, the program on air is focused on this week, and today we are discussing a topic titled The Tanzania We Want, from Vision 2025 to Vision 2050. And now coming to you, Professor Wangwe, there are things that you explained, and I think they actually relate to this question. When we heard President Samia Suluhu Hassan during the launch, she explained about self-reliant, something that is outlined on the vision. What does economic self-reliant mean to our nation in regard to the vision? And are we really going to be able to actually have, are we going to be able to finance our own economy in the country? Can you explain?
Thank you very much. Actually, Most developing economies are actually self-reliant. It's difficult to say I'm developing, but relying on others. But the concept of self-reliance relies on using own resources, natural resources, human resources, financial resources, as much as possible using your own. When self-reliance concept was put forward in 1967, that was the idea. And that's why in terms of human resources, we had projections of manpower planning, how we could be more self-reliant in terms of human resources. In terms of natural resources and agriculture, we had projections to ensure that in agriculture we have transformation of the agricultural sector. But in terms of finance, it was clearly said that we'd like to reduce dependence on aid. We can receive aid which is able to create the capacity to require less aid in the future until we are completely independent. Up to now, we have not made a lot of progress in that respect. But in this vision, it is a clear indication, and as the President Samia put it clearly, self-reliance is that approach in which we use our own resources as much as possible. If you're using other people's resources, is actually to build a capacity to be able to depend on your own resources. And here the issue of national interest comes in play. All countries observe their national interests. When we engage with other countries, they are engaging their own national interests, and we have to engage in our own national interests so that we meet in between, a win-win situation. But if we don't put weight on national interest and self-reliance, others will achieve their interest by relating to us, and we may not be able to achieve that. So self-reliance actually counts all those types of resources. We know that natural resources are very important especially if you put effort on value addition. There's a lot you can make from natural resources. But natural resources must be backed by the ability to use them. So that's where human resources, skills, and technology actually come in. Because otherwise, if we don't do that, those who have the technology, those who have the skills, will come and exploit them. We'll sell to them raw, and we get very little from them simply because we do not get prepared in terms of using the skills and using the technology which can exploit them. So that's where I think when you talk of an economy which is strong, which is competitive, inclusive, and be able to move us out of poverty, we cannot ignore, we must put emphasis on skills and on technology in order to make sure that we actually exploit the resources we have. Because they require skill and technology in order to exploit them. And that's why in this deal of 2050, this is given emphasis.
Thank you so much, Professor. I wanted to ask on what you were explaining, how are we going to ensure that these skills and the technology is imparted to the young generation who are going to be there, like in the 2050, they're actually going to be the generation that is going to dominate in that time. They're here today and they'll be there in the future.
Fortunately, we have a large young population. And the young population is dynamic. And we have now a large population which is educated, not like those days. The level of education now has gone up. What is required now is the skills which they will need to work with and the technology. So that we can put emphasis, if we put emphasis on those two things, skills and technology, then we can make sure that that young population becomes dynamic rather than independent, become the one moving the economy rather than the one depending on others. And this is, as the president said when she was launching this vision, she said, this time round, we'll put high priority on results and high priority on meritocracy and high priority on human skills and the discipline of actual delivery. So that means an implementation framework will have to be put in place and actually monitoring what is being done, monitoring and evaluation, and learning from it to become institutionally a strong element of implementation of this strategy. This was missed out in the last vision of 2025. And M&D, monitoring and evaluation framework, was not put in place. This time, it's already being prepared. So it gives us hope that we'll be able to use the young people we have in a more productive way so that we can achieve this DERA 2050. Implementation must be given very high score in terms of expecting results, not words. That I'm working, I'm in the process of doing it. We should see results. And this can be measured if we properly ensure that the institutional framework actually can measure results at the implementation stage.
Thank you so much, Professor Wangwe, for that explanation. Much emphasis should be put on actually doing it, not just saying words. Now to you, Thomas. We know that Tanzania has been implementing 5-year development plans. Can you tell us how did these 5-year development plans contributed to the implementation of the previous Vision 2025, and how will they support the implementation of the Vision 2050?
They supported it in terms of that you are breaking down the goals into small pieces. They say if you want to eat an elephant, you begin with the tail and then you nibble your way through. So the 5-year development plan just broke down the 25-year vision into smaller compartments. Now, the problem becomes now that after every 5-year development plan, was there an evaluation of what worked in those 5 years and what didn't work? Now, what didn't work, there's an occurring theme which was happening with these 5-year development plans. And it has to do with implementation. Number one is corruption, that the money intended to do certain things somewhere along the line ends up being misused, either through corruption or through misconduct, what you call uzembe. But number two is also there were instances where money for certain implementations does not arrive on time, and when it does arrive, it does not arrive 100%. So you have a plan which requires X amount of shillings to be delivered in a certain time. Now the time reaches, the money is not there, it's delayed. When the money does come, you do not get all of it, you get a percentage of it. So that affects planning and affects implementation. But number three is the human resources. Those who are supposed to implement the DERA itself. It's not the leaders. The leaders, they are just there as the supervisors or overseers. But down there are people actually doing the delivering of this, the implementation of this DERA. So how well equipped are they to deliver the deliverables? So meaning, do they have the education which is required? Do they have the skills which is required? Do they get the necessary training? So this goes back now to some of the things Professor Kitila Mkumbo said will be done to ensure that we fix the implementation problem. Number one is that DERA 2025 will go into Parliament. I'm assuming between November when the new Parliament sits and June when the new budget is being discussed. DERA 2025 will go into Parliament to make it into law, which answers the question of now if another leader comes, will they change it? So now it will become law. So it means not only the next president will have to implement the DERA as it is, even if it happens that another party is in power, they have to implement the same DIRA, meaning even the party manifestos will have to reflect DIRA. But making it into law itself is not enough. Once it's law now, it means that there should be consequences of what happens if now the DIRA as a law is broken. What are the punishments? What are the consequences of not being able to deliver? Now this goes back again to ensuring that, okay, corruption, how we handle corruption to make sure that the money which has to be used in certain areas is actually used there. Number two, on-time delivery. Is the money getting there on time and the amount that is supposed to be there? After you sort that, now it's three, the people implementing it, are they now implementing it? Now that goes to monitoring and evaluation. But monitoring and evaluation itself is not enough, because even though it was not officially done, but there was monitoring and evaluation happening, because we knew after every 5-year development plan what did not work and what worked. So why didn't it change? It means now after monitoring and evaluating, there has to be a mechanism to make sure that now the things which have not been working are fixed. If it's a systemic problem, if it's a finance problem, if it's a human resource problem, how do we fix it? And I think now going forward, this shouldn't be a 5-year thing. It should be a yearly thing. Every year we should evaluate that how far are we going towards achieving the DIRA 2050. And I think for me, I think one thing which needs to be added, which I don't know if it has been added to the implementation or not, my peers will correct me if I'm wrong, but there should be a watchdog with teeth to ensure that, okay, if it's now the law and this is not being delivered, what are the consequences? Now we can go to the CAG. We have the yearly CAG report, where the CAG's job is just to evaluate and give a report on what's happening. But after that is done, how do we now ensure that those people who are responsible for those losses, they're held accountable? So do we need another office now that, aside from CAG, which is just a watchdog overseer, now another authority now to take action to those who are not implementing? So we need, I think, an authority which actually monitors, evaluates, and ensures that the DIRA 2050 is followed to the dot. And if it's not followed to the dot, that actions are taken. So that DIRA 2050 watchdog, whatever it will be, should have the power now to take even people to court if they're not, if there's corruption, or to have disciplinary measures to those people who are not disciplined enough to ensure that the DIRA 2050 is being implemented the way it has to be implemented.
Thank you so much, Thomas, for that explanation that you have provided. Now to you, Dr. Kayoza. On the day of the launch of the DIRA 2050, if we remember, Rostam Aziz spoke about, like he gave an advice that on the mega projects that are conducted in the country, that the local citizens should be given those mega projects to do them so that the benefits could go back to the country. So can you explain the role of the locals, of the Tanzanians, in the implementation of the Vision 2050, but also in the improvement of our economy? What is our own role?
I think it was a valid concern. We have to put this in mind that one of the biggest resources we have is human beings. And when we are talking about human beings, of course, as a nation, we start with our own people. And that was what I said before, Arion, that the question when you are managing modern economies is not, the question shouldn't be, where are the sectors? The question should be, where are my people? And that's a central question. So that's what he was saying. Number two to that question is, I think what he argued, I can put it in one aspect. It is about capital. And the capital in 3 layers. Number one is natural capital. So we have these resources, we want to exploit these resources, not exploiting them in a way of maintaining the extractive state that we have been having because of how we relate to the rest of the world, as my friends have argued. So one should be, how do you exploit these resources? By, of course, indulging the local people. Two is productive capital. And productive capital here, I mean, what are those things that will make people productive? If it's about technology, as my friends have argued, it's about the mechanics of doing the things, then you have to be in a position, of course, to align with that, with two issues. One is the financial aspect of that, to make people make these, if they are companies, if they are sectors, bankable. And two, on that productive capital, is to make sure that the goals are well established in terms of what you want to achieve. The last thing, which is the most important, is the human capital. So these people dealing with all these, a lot of people dealing with different aspects of managing, if it's about the infrastructure, for example, as we have said, then how much do these people, to what extent do these people participate? That's what I was talking about, the market that contains, that entails everyone in the economy. But that is one side of his argument. And I don't think it is both a necessary and a sufficient condition. I think it's only a sufficient, a necessary condition, it's not sufficient. The other side is that when you have a young economy like ours, a developing economy like ours, we have to get rid of this misconception that, for example, when we import a lot of issues at the moment, then the economy is doing bad. In fact, what we are doing actually today is the importation is an aspect of bridging the gap of investment. And because we're investing a lot in these infrastructures, you need a lot of capital goods to enter into the economy. So when you are measuring, for example, when people are saying we have a lot of deficits, the danger is that at the moment, you can't get rid of that because you want that to build the enablers. I think the DIRA talks about the enablers of the economy. Now, if that is the case, then Tanzania is not producing everything that we want to run this infrastructure. So what you'll end up with is that you'll have to get a lot of these capital goods, and necessarily you have to spend a lot of money to get these goods and services, goods or services, to put in place the infrastructure you want in the economy. And that way, necessarily, you will get a lot of money, a lot of capital, money, finances out of the country. But if you have long-term plans on how this infrastructure, for example, will be able to trickle down by aligning these sectors with the potential sectors like agriculture, as we have said, then that will be a very good thing. And that's how these people can benefit. Lastly, it's that there are three deficits this nation must fix so that the people can be, so that Tanzanians can participate. One is the energy sector. Now, if you don't bridge the gap, if we keep on having an economy running on the energy deficit, eventually the cost of production will be higher. And because we can't maintain that, then you'll have other people. We need other people who have, of course, we will argue that we need people who have cash to do that. Because we don't have cash, the cost will be high. Two is the food deficit. Now, if you do that, what will be happening is that a lot of people will have less burden in terms of sustaining their lives. And that will allow them to do what we call, when you talk about foreign direct investments, you have to be talking about domestic direct investments. So you have people to invest in their own area, in their local areas. And number three is the value addition deficit. That's why the DIRA talks about industrialization, to make sure that industries will sit at the center of everything that we are doing. And to do that, you will have to make sure that the value chain we talk about, the supply chain we talk about, will in any way being articulated, for example, from the policy perspective, but in terms of implementation within the context of the economy you are building. And I think that way we can do that. But let's not forget, our population is young, and it will be younger as we go forward. So we'll have to sort the issue of youth, what we can call the youth economy. I think a lot of young people have to be captured in every sense of managing this economy. As we speak today, the structures to absorb these young people in the market are not favorable enough. And that's where 2025 vision missed the point, because if you had to look at the finances in terms of the young people below that 5 years of age, collectively, it's only 2% of the finances that went into empowering these young people. So you need to have those people in those aspects. From the policy perspective of the government, is that you need to make sure that you define well where are these people going. Because if we talk about 1%, it's not even 1%, because the names have been, we need to get these people with the degrees to get employed. Now, I don't say these people should not be employed. My argument is that we have many young people who have not entered into universities, and these people have to be, of course, absorbed in the economy. And our question should be on those people as much as we can, to make sure that if you argue on the entrepreneurial abilities, on saying that people should employ themselves, this is a large group. That's a large group that we should be concerned with, and that will have to put in place the technical part, the technical part of it, which sectors absorb a good number of people with little capital. So the capital to labor ratio has to be factored in to make sure that you will have a lot of these young people into the economies, and of course, women as well.
Thank you so much, Dr. Kahioza, for that intense explanation. Now, back to you, Professor Wangwe. We clearly know that now in Tanzania there is a SADC summit that is going on. So can you tell us, how does the Vision 2050 speak about positioning Tanzania as a diplomatic hub? Yeah.
Thank you very much. Before I come to that, let me comment on how add a little support my colleagues here said.
Okay.
Thomas mentioned about plans. Just to remind ourselves one small thing, that when Vision 2025 was launched, our understanding was immediately we would have a long-term plan being launched, and a 5-year plan, the first one, coming right in the time 2000 to 2005. And then a first year plan, your plan, as Thomas has said. But unfortunately, this did not come through. Because it was interfered with by what was called the Poverty Reduction Strategy paper in 2000. So effort, it's like we were working on two legs. One leg on PRSP and another leg on Vision. So there were no 5-year plan. Until after 10 years, a review was made to see what had been done in terms of implementing Vision 2025. That's when it was discovered that we needed to resume 5-year plans. So in 2010, a 15-year perspective plan was crafted. Not a 25-year, which should have been done 10 years ago. So there was some slowdown in implementation. So the first 5-year plan, and then came in 2011 to 2015. It should have come in 2000. So one lesson which is taught here is, right from the beginning, come with a long-term perspective plan. Don't wait for 10 years to come with it. But this one is being done now. There's a long-term perspective plan now. So next year it will be launched, and as soon as it is done, the 5-year plan also will be launched, and the annual plan will be launched. So this is like drawing lessons from the past. There was also a point which Thomas made on the I think it was Kahioza, about what comment this Rostam Aziz made. Yeah, it is true that private sector development, especially large projects, he mentioned, but this should be same point replicated even to smaller projects. The Vision 2050 is emphasizing the point about the centrality or the importance of private sector development. but a large part of the private sector is medium-sized and small. So what Rostam said about big should also be said about small. And FDI, foreign direct investment, as it comes in, how it should not wage out domestic investment. There should be ways of doing joint ventures and relating in such a way that as foreign direct investment flourishes here, we also, as domestic investors, also flourish. This is what is being done in China, in Vietnam, in India. They make sure that they bring the foreign investment in order actually to accelerate the development of domestic investment, not to replace it. So I agree with his point, but become more broad. And imports, which Mr. Kayoza actually said, imports, it depends on what kind of investors. What he said is very true in terms of capital goods and intermediate goods. We should now be more careful about these consumer goods. There are too many of them coming in and replacing domestically produced goods. This is not good for the economy in the long run. So whatever we import, we should be able to be clear, what is it coming to do in terms of improving the economy? It's not replacing the domestic industry. So that's just point I wanted to make. Then what you asked me was
the ongoing SADC summit.
Yes, the ongoing SADC summit. You know, Tanzania is in a very good geographical position. It can be a hub to the region as a main entry point to DRC, to Congo, to Burundi, Rwanda, Uganda. It can be an entry point even as far as to Angola if we actually position ourselves accordingly. So for SADC, we can be a major hub to reach those countries. Well positioned, we can do that. But that requires what is already said in Envision 2050, a strong economy which is competitive and inclusive, so that we meet requirements of the neighboring countries by being a strong economy, competitive economy. Because the only way you can push products from Tanzania and link to them, they require competitiveness, so that you can compete with other countries in terms of supplying, but they also require infrastructure, which is real, and logistics, which are really able to facilitate entry into the neighboring economies. And SADC has a market which can be done that way. You can see like South Africa is penetrating all other economies with the investments, which means if we prepare ourselves in terms of producing competitively, we can also penetrate other countries, and SADC will be a very good starting point in terms of the market as we enter the free trade, this African market, which can be done if we prepare to be competitive, as the vision itself is saying. But then it will require preparation in the plans and follow-up in terms of monitoring and evaluating what we are actually doing, so that we put effort on the results, not on words. Yes.
Definitely, Professor Wang. Yeah. Thank you for that explanation. To you, Thomas, can you tell us, there are global agenda that are going on, like, for instance, the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, the SDGs that are expected to be accomplished by 2030, ending poverty and all those other SDGs. How does the Vision 2050 align with those global goals?
In my opinion, global agendas like the SDGs are good, but what's more important is to look at our own situation and go at our own pace, that what our priorities and how do we make sure that we reach those priorities. We've seen now that to end poverty, you need a strong economy, you need an educated workforce, but three, I think something which will help us achieve in the long run these SDGs in our own country is there's something which most people maybe do not notice or do not talk a lot about is the imbalance between the formal and informal sector. In Tanzania, we have only 30% in the formal sector, estimates 70% in the informal sector. So if you want to improve our economy in order now to deal with other issues such as education, healthcare, climate change, and all that, is now how do we integrate the 70% who are in the informal sector to now join the formal sector. And actually, I argue, but the economist might correct me, I argue that our economy might be bigger than it seems because unfortunately, these global matrices like GDP per capita or GDP, they only take into account the formal sector. So when they say that Tanzania has a GDP per capita of $1,200, that's counting the people in the formal sector, because that can be calculated. But now we have means of formalizing people in the informal sector. For example, one challenge is that many people do not have bank accounts, but a lot of people have mobile money accounts. So you can formalize sectors using mobile money accounts. You understand that, okay, how can these people pay taxes, but not only taxes, how can these people gain loans? Because to gain a loan, they look at your track record, their transactions. What better way of looking at a person's transactions and then the mobile money transactions? People transact with their mobile money more than their bank accounts. So we need to formalize our economy in order to grow the economy. And then from then on now, as we grow the economy, now we can deal with these challenges of putting money into now healthcare, poverty reduction, and so forth. But finally, one challenge that we had in the Vision 2025 is disparity in implementation when it comes to urban and rural areas, that more emphasis was kept on urban areas than rural areas. But even regionally, the regions which have advanced a lot in the 25 years are usually the coastal and northern regions have seen far more growth than regions in the southern part of Tanzania and the central part of Tanzania.
Thank you so much, Dr. Kahioza. Thank you so much, Thomas Kibwana. Thank you for your time and for all the contributions that you have given. TBC1 viewers, if you were watching our program, the program on air was focused on this week, and today we discussed the topic titled The Tanzania We Want, from Vision 2025 to Vision 2050. And the emphasis has been put on collaborative effort, that everyone has to play a role so that we are able to achieve the Vision 2050. Leading the program, I was your host, Caroline Maleo. Until next time, bye-bye.